Hey guys, it's Konpeki here, and in this video, I'll share with you how to climb out of each rank in Valorant, starting from Iron all the way to hitting Radiant. Now, why should you listen to me? I used to mindlessly grind for thousands of hours on competitive games like CSGO, League, and Overwatch, but I was always stuck around Silver and Gold, so I wasn't some cracked face at level 10 pub stomper that transitioned over to Valorant. To avoid being hard stuck again, I reworked my entire approach to learning games, and through trial and error, I managed to hit Radiant multiple times since episode 1. I've also shared my learning lessons to help hundreds of players hit Immortal and Radiant inside my 8-week coaching program. So I know these tips will also help you. If you want personalized feedback from me and my team of Radiant coaches with VCT experience to rank up 500 RR in 8 weeks guaranteed or your money back, use the link below to book a free call with me or one of my coaches to see if you'd be a good fit. Let's begin with the Iron to Bronze players. When you're at this rank, it honestly just takes time and practice to learn the basic mechanics of the game. And these tips assume that you don't have a 30 FPS setup that's holding you back. Basics such as getting used to stopping before you shoot, making sure you're not walk peeking around angles, learning to pre-aim angles before you peek, which requires a bit of map knowledge, learning basic spray patterns of the most commonly used guns in game, getting used to micro adjustments and trigger discipline, so not shooting before your crosshair is fully on the target, and slowly developing good crosshair placement at head level. It sounds so basic, but that's really all you need to get out of Bronze and hit Silver. To work on these basics, I made a whole 46-minute video that will teach you how to learn every mechanic in Valorant, which you should definitely watch. But if I were to pick the top 3 drills to focus on, it would be the micro adjustment drill, the spray control drill, and the tracking drill. The micro adjustment drill will help you with your first bullet accuracy and micro flicks. The spray control drill will help you land more of your shots, even if you can't hit as many headshots just yet. And the tracking drill will help your crosshair placement because it will help you focus on keeping the crosshair at head level while moving at all times. Notice how I didn't tell you to use aim trainers. At this level, most of the work involves learning basic gun and movement mechanics of the game. Now, once you're out of Bronze, you've officially made it to the ranks that the majority of players in Valorant are. Silver is a rank that I initially placed at, and I managed to quickly climb out of it by mainly focusing on improving my mechanics. However, picking up the basic patterns of the game will help you get out of Silver and Gold even faster. Players at this rank are generally familiar with the map layouts and basic callouts. They know the basics of what different agent abilities do, they kind of understand econ management, and they know the basic shooting and movement mechanics now. However, having knowledge about something doesn't mean you're actually able to apply that knowledge. Knowledge and application are two completely different things, and this is where Silver to Gold players struggle. The reason why application is so difficult is because, to be honest, you're still learning the 4 basic patterns that exist in the game. Mechanical patterns require you to understand concepts such as angle advantages, enemy peeking patterns, peeker's advantage, and so on to help you decide how you want to approach every gunfight. For example, even if you have the best aim in the world, if you're holding an angle that you have an angle disadvantage in, the enemy will kill you before you can even see them on your screen. So you wouldn't want to take a gunfight in that angle standing stationary. So to improve this aspect of the game, you need to learn the different types of peeks that exist in the game and how to apply them, as well as the concept of angle advantage and how to use it to your advantage to take favorable gunfights. All the details of that can also be found in my longer mechanics guide. The second pattern that exists in the game is economy patterns. It requires you to understand what good econ and ult point management looks like to help you decide when to buy or save, and how you might want to play the round depending on the weapons and ultimates that you and the enemy team have available. For example, even if you have the best aim in the world, if you peek into an angle where an enemy is holding you with a bucky, you're gonna get one pumped and die. Or if you see that an enemy KO has his ultimate available on Breeze, there's a good chance he'll use it over on the B site where the Viper or Cypher is playing. Keeping track of ultimates, guns, and paying attention to the economy will be a crucial point to focus on more at this level. The third pattern you gotta understand is positioning patterns. They require you to understand concepts such as angle isolation, optimal spacing for trades, ally and enemy rotation options and timings, basic attacking and defending side defaults, playing off of contact, map control, and so on to help you decide how to position yourself around the map. For example, no matter how good your aim or reaction time is, if you're caught out in the open and you get peeked from 2 different angles at the same time, there's a very high chance that you won't survive. Or let's say if your team has poor spacing while entering a site, there's a very good chance that your team will get picked off one by one without being able to trade each other at all. Lastly, utility patterns require you to understand concepts such as ally and enemy util timings, combos, counters, and so on to help you decide how to maximize the value you get from your and your teammates' utility. For example, even if you have the best aim in the world, if you get unexpectedly flashed, there's a very low chance that you're gonna win the fight. But if you can anticipate where and when the enemy likes to flash, you can come up with counterplays. As you continue to learn the basics of the game and you've gotten out of gold and managed to hit plat, it's a continuous process of refining the basic fundamentals in the game to hit diamond. However, I hit a wall when I reached diamond 1. And keep in mind, this was before Ascendant was a rank. I kept fluctuating between Plat 3 and Diamond 1, and that's when I started to think more critically about how I was playing the game. Around Plat and Diamond is when you start to see 3 different types of players. Players who are overly reliant on their aim and have practically zero game sense. Players who are overly reliant on their utility and agent mastery, aka lineup players who don't understand the principle behind what actually makes a good lineup. And lastly, players who are a weird mix of both that fall in the in-between where they're well-rounded but not really exceptional in anything either. I fell into the first category of players. I remember I was an all-aim, no-brain Reyna in Plat who ego-peeked every angle, but the moment I understood the reason why 1-for-1 trades favor the attackers, I stopped my old habits and started to play a lot more around my teammates' positioning and utility. Ask yourself all the time, is this a high-risk, high-reward fight that's worth it for me to take? Or is this a high-risk, low-reward play that's going to put my team in a difficult spot? If you fall into the second category of players, you have to break the habit of over-relying on utility to get kills. Sometimes thinking too much about your utility will put you in positions where you miss the timing on getting easy frags. You can't keep compensating your lack of confidence in your aim with your util. You also need to ask yourself whether your util is actually providing value to your team or not. If your crazy lineup lands even 3 seconds after your team started the execute, it's already late. If you fall into the last category of players where your skills are more well-rounded, but everything is a bit lackluster, focus on one skill at a time to improve, one at a time. Once you hit Ascendant, the game can start to feel pretty sweaty. Players between Ascendant 1 to Immortal 1 are comfortable with recognizing in-game patterns and for the most part can make correct decisions quickly. However, the reason why players get stuck in this rank is because the problems that they struggled with between Plat and Diamond are amplified even more. So in an attempt to fix their weakest skills, a lot of players between Ascendant and Immortal end up struggling with overthinking. Overthinking your problems is understandable because the higher up you climb in ELO, the more you're going to be punished for your mistakes, so you become fixated on fixing those weaknesses as soon as possible. But this mindset can backfire in so many ways and keep you hard stuck. For example, an Ascendant 2 Sky player might now be pretty good at some components of the game such as mechanics and positioning, but they might have identified that their util usage is still subpar. In an attempt to work on their weakest skills, they focus too much on using their utility. What ends up happening then is during a fast site hit, they try to throw all their flashes and use their dog to get onto the site when they could have just played contact, pop one quick flash around the corner or out of the smoke to then have their gun out to trade their teammates out. This is an example of you don't know what you don't know. In an attempt at trying to solve the problem, you end up spending hundreds of hours trying different things and seeing what sticks after trial and error. Ascendant wasn't around back in episode 1, but around Diamond 2 and 3, right before Immortal, I was VOD reviewing myself every day and even getting coached when I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong myself. It was through that experience where I learned what the traits of an optimal entry pathing looks like. I didn't realize that my entry pathing was terrible when I was in a lower rank, because if an enemy peeked me while I was running out, I could easily flick to them and kill them. But in higher ranks, the enemies also had good aim, so the small delay in me needing to flick, microdress, and shoot was more than enough time for the enemies to kill me before I can even shoot. That's when I learned the importance of how to maximize angle isolation for every site that I would entry. This was an issue that specifically pertained to me, but I bet at least 99% of people who are watching this video haven't even sat down once to do a full VOD review of their own game to figure out what's really holding them back. And you might be wasting hundreds of hours trying to figure out what sticks, but if you want to truly reach the top 1%, you have to do what the other 99% of people aren't willing to do. Once you've hit Immortal 1, you've done it. You're officially the top 1% of the entire player base. Many players are satisfied with stopping their climb here, but this last tip I have is for the players who really want to reach the top 0.02% and hit Radiant. To go from Immortal to Radiant, I just had to keep fine-tuning the mistakes I was making by VOD reviewing myself. I played at least 10 deathmatch games a day to fine-tune my crosshair placement and making my aim snappier. And for each comp game I played, I would write down 3 things that I felt like was still holding me back from securing more rounds, and I would only focus on those 3 things going into the next game. Laser focused play sessions combined with grinding 8 to 10 hours a day, yeah I know it's a lot of time, helped me improve tremendously fast. Surprisingly, it only took about 2 months for me to hit Radiant after hitting Immortal. And I think the reason why I was able to continue improving really quickly while others couldn't when they put in the same amount of hours into the game was because of my mindset. My biggest tip for you guys trying to hit Radiant is to be humble and always stay curious. This applies to every player across all ranks, but this is especially important for players who are stuck in high Immortal. It's easy to stay humble and curious when you know you suck. Acknowledging that you're not good enough is what motivated you to keep learning and improving as a player. However, once you've hit Immortal and you've actually managed to pass climb 300 to 400 RR, you start to feel like you really know the game off the back of your head. It becomes so easy to spot every little mistake your teammates make, and it becomes very hard to actually focus on your own game when you're so obsessed with gaining the extra few hundred RR to hit Radiant. As a result, you stop doing the very things that have helped you reach your peak rank in the first place. And then you start autopiloting, and then you start blaming external factors you can't control, and it just becomes a vicious cycle that repeats itself over and over again. I've seen myself fall into this trap, and I've seen this happen to thousands of other players I've coached and talked to across all ranks. But this is the most prevalent issue I see in Immortal level players. If you can't hit Radiant after being stuck in Immortal for the past 3 years that the game's been out, it's not your teammates' fault. It's not the game's fault. You're the one who's holding yourself back the most. So I plead with you, even the best of the best players in the world can't afford to let their guard down because someone else is aiming to take their championship spot. So what makes you think that you can have an ego playing the game? I've only peaked 600 RR in Radiant, and playing against some of these players who've peaked over 1k RR made me realize that there's still a massive skill gap and learning never stops. Thanks for watching.